Amazing story about McCormick's passion and joins us now to talk about this extensive collection now in the hands of the Smithsonian, specifically the National Museum of American History. And I am pleased to welcome Jeff Edges to this program. Jeff, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, Tavis?
Man, if I complain I'd be an ingrate, it must be a Washington Post day. I had a guest on in the first hour connected to the Post, and here you come now connected to the Post. So I ain't mad at the Washington Post and all the shout-outs they're getting on the program today. But let me jump right in. Before I get to the collection, which is fascinating, let me just start by giving you an opportunity to tell the audience about Robert Mack McCormick. Tell me about the man, then we'll get to his collection.
Well, Mac McCormick was, people use the word complicated a lot, but it's a pretty good word, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy who was fascinated by music, fascinated by the kind of music you didn't hear always on the radio. He wasn't looking for, stuff in the 50s like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?
Mm-hmm.
He was fascinated by blues music, country music, rural music that he heard in different places, mainly in Texas and the South. And he was he was also very fascinated by Robert Johnson, who, we know in the modern world as, the guy who wrote Crossroads. And there's this, really phony legend that he sold his soul to the devil to become a great player. He probably just practiced a lot and really was talented. But, they don't say that about Eric Clapton, right?
Exactly.
But so Mac McCormick, he had a really he moved around a lot as a kid, like 20 times by the time he was 17, and he just started bringing these recording machines around in the 60s and the 50s and capturing these performers who were playing at juke joints and in their living rooms. And he collected all this stuff, and he, at the same time, spent a lot of time researching Robert Johnson with the idea that he was going to write the definitive history of Robert Johnson. And then what happened, basically, is he was held back by a lot of his own psychological issues, it sounds like. I spoke with his daughter, and he ultimately didn't publish any of his Robert Johnson material, wrote several versions of this book, and most of his archive, all of his archive really remained in this house in Texas on reel-to-reel tapes, not really listened to and certainly not available to the public until now.
Wow. So I'm fascinated by this guy because who goes around? I mean, we all love the blues and we love jazz, we love R&B and pop and rock and hip hop, et cetera, gospel. But I can't imagine somebody loving it so much they run around recording it themselves, Jeff.
Well, there was a belief at a certain point in American history, and definitely in the 20th century. First of all, recording was suddenly mobile. You could actually carry around a thing and capture things in the moment. Mm-hmm. Bear in mind, we didn't have, when Louis Armstrong was recording records in the 20s, he was huddled around a horn with his band trying to capture it through that thing. Suddenly in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, we had these tape machines. You could throw them in your trunk and drive around. So Mac McCormick wasn't the only one. I mean, the most famous person probably is Alan Lomax, who went all throughout the country. Also, went to prisons, went to work sites, just trying to went all around the world. I was listening just because of this story. I got kind of interested in it. I found a record from it's the Songs of Italy, and Alan Lomax went to Italy in like the 50s, and the second song was like a sea chant sung by a group of half-naked fishermen as they lifted a fishing net. So there was this idea that we were like, there was sound everywhere, and we're going to lose it if we didn't capture it. So Mac was part of that group of people. I mean, there was a name that these people gave themselves or gave to others, which was the Blues Mafia. And the idea was these were generally white people with recording equipment going around and capturing black music throughout the South.
We're going to play just a few bits of 4 or 5 tracks, maybe 5 or 6 tracks. We'll play as many as we can, at least in the half hour that I have with you here. But I listened to a lot of it last night, the stuff that was sent to us for this conversation, and the quality isn't necessarily, it ain't studio quality, but it's not that bad either. So when these folks are traveling around recording people on the spot in parts unknown, what about the quality of this stuff that he's now turned over? His family's now turned over to the Smithsonian.
It's pretty good, I think. I mean, I had a conversation with Questlove when his amazing documentary Summer Soul came out.
Sure.
And what struck me, I'm a little bit of an audio geek, and I see these recording situations nowadays where there are 500 microphones in a room. The drums have 7 microphones. And I watched that Summer Soul, and I watched some of the performances, like the Staple Singers, and I was like, how are they getting it to sound so good? And he said, you know what? We try so hard in the modern era to capture the energy and the sound that they get with 5 microphones on a stage in open air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're Lightning Hopkins, I'm sorry, like, you have a microphone in front of him, he's playing his guitar, that's going to sound pretty good.
Yeah. And
there are a lot of people that might have great equipment but aren't Lightning Hopkins, and they're not going to be able to deliver that. So that's what I'd say.
No, and I'd only add to that list, it's not just the instruments. I mean, they didn't have any auto-tune back in the day, and they still sound good without it. I digress on that point. When we come forward with our guest, Jeff Edgers of the Washington Post, we'll talk more about Robert Mack McCormick and specifically get into some of the pieces that are a part of his collection. I'm really fascinated also to ask Jeff what he knows about why Mack was so fascinated by Robert Johnson. Great artist, no doubt about it. But what was the fascination with Robert Johnson? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Anything from a foot race, from a foot race to a resting place, from a close shave.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shorty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience, temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
That's in the same tune, you see.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Jeff Edges of the Washington Post talking about this Robert Mac McCormick, who loved the blues so much he spent his entire life collecting tapes and vinyl and writings. A lot of stuff in his rare collection never before seen or heard until now. His family has donated his entire collection to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. And a lot of us will get a chance to, in the years to come, delve into all that is, in fact, in his collection. Jeff wrote a pretty in-depth story about this, and I wanted to just kind of probe him more about the collection. Let me start with this, Jeff. Why? What do you know about his fascination with Robert Johnson?
Well, I don't think Mac was the only person fascinated by Robert Johnson.
Agreed.
It's the thing about Robert Johnson is here's a guy who comes in and basically records 29 songs, right, in just a couple sessions in 1936 and 37. And he's set to play this massive concert. John Hammond, the producer, was going to bring him into Carnegie Hall to play this Spirituals to Swing concert in 1938. And he dies mysteriously right before that. So he's gone. And they're barely any. I think there are 4 existing photos. We've maybe seen 1 or 2 of them. There's no real sense of what happened with him. But what you have left over is this incredible music. These 29 songs are unbelievable. I mean, these are songs that when you think about all the white musicians in the 60s who were fascinated by blues, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, we could just go on and on, Led Zeppelin, they're all covering Robert Johnson songs, Crossroads Blues, Walking Blues, all these songs. And so I'm trying to think of the song, I'm blanking on it, the amazing Rolling Stone song that they did, they covered of it. But, all right, so that's Robert Johnson. And throughout history, there's a movie called Crossroads, which is not the greatest, where Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid guy, gets this masterful ability to play the blues. But, then this bizarre legend struck where, Robert Johnson, he sold his soul at the crossroads to the devil to learn to play the blues. And, this is pretty bad. It's kind of, it's racist. It's the only thing I can call it, because, as I said to you before the break, people don't go around and say, how did Jimmy Page learn? Oh, he sold his soul. Somehow when a guy like Robert Johnson masters his instrument like that, it's got to be some weird otherworldly mojo, that has, voodoo basically, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. So that's Mac was fascinated by that. Also is the idea that in the 60s and 70s, we have this blues revival. So if Robert Johnson had lived, he would have been I'm just saying, Skip James or Mississippi John Hurt or Lightning Hopkins. Mm-hmm. He would have been in this generation of blues players who was rediscovered and, brought to the college music circuit and Newport Folk Festival, and all that mysticism probably would have been gone. But because he wasn't, alive, suddenly a guy like Mac is hey, I've got to tell this story. I've got to trace this story. And I've got to find out what really happened with Robert Johnson. So that's what I think. No,
there's a certain kind of magic and mysticism. I was friends with Prince, as this audience knows, very dear friends with Prince, and for 30 years, and traveled the world with this guy, and we spent a lot of time together everywhere. I was always amazed at the ways in which he was able to advance himself, in part because of the mysticism around him. And we talked about that from time to time. I think, very quickly, the song you were looking for with the Stones was it Love and Pain?
Yeah, Love and Vain. Yeah.
Love and Vain. I said Pain. Yeah, Love. Yeah.
Hey, Tavis, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Prince question?
Sure.
Can I do it?
Sure.
could regular people look Prince in the eyes, or were we told not? What's the truth there?
Yeah,
if I'd met Prince, could I have looked him in the eye? No.
Indeed, you could have. I don't know where that urban legend came from. You couldn't look him in the eye. I don't know.
I want to tell you the second Prince thing that I just love is after he died, and it ruined our world. I mean, Prince dying, but after he died, I had this amazing conversation with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, the bearded man.
Oh, yeah.
And he just told me about how he stumbled upon Prince one night in a restaurant, and Prince waved him over, and they spent like 4 hours just talking about guitar, how to play guitar. And at one point, Billy Gibbons said, "How do you do the beginning of When Doves Cry?" And Prince said, I'm not telling you.
Now that sounds like Prince. No question about that. I will tell you this, not to pivot too aggressively here, but I have never in my life met anyone more curious. And you cover these artists. You're a music writer. I mean, you do this kind of stuff, and maybe you can now want to get your take on this. I have found that the artists who I am most fascinated by are those who are the most curious. I mean, you sit and you have a conversation with, and I could just run a long list of them. You sit and talk to these great artists, these great songwriters, and you're trying to talk to them, and they're flipping it as fast as they can to ask you questions. I mean, I just find that what at the epicenter of what makes a great artist oftentimes is their own curiosity about you, about life, about the world. They're curious people. I've never met anybody more curious than Prince.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The difference between the people, whether it's artists, whether it's broadcasters, whether it's writers, the people who I think are most interesting are the ones that actually ask the people they're talking to questions and want to learn. And then there are the other people, and we know those people. And, they can be talented, they can be gifted, but there's something holding them back. They're just not going to explore in the same way. So I agree with you.
I was in a conversation the other day about something totally different. But I make this joke. I tell this joke all the time that everybody wants to be a talk show host, whether it's on television or radio. These days, everybody wants to be a talk show host. I've been at this 30+ years, but and everybody's got a podcast. My dog has a podcast. Everybody's got podcasts these days, so everybody wants to be some kind of host. And I am tickled by that. And whenever I'm in these conversations about certain people who are rumored in Hollywood to be getting a talk show, or in the radio business for that matter, rumored to be getting a talk show, I can tell you up front, those who have a chance at making it and those who are going to fail miserably. And I do that not because I'm arrogant or hubristic. I do that in part because if I know the person, I can tell you whether or not they are curious enough as a person to truly be interested in the opinions, the views, the thoughts, the aspirations, the hopes and dreams and fears of other people. If you're not a genuinely curious person, if you're not a generous listener, if you're not a charitable listener, in no way do you make it in this business. So you and I agree that on those persons who are, at heart curious people, they end up making, I think, not just better artists, but better human beings. But I digress on that point. Back to Robert.
I like that, Tavis. If we could, we'll go back to Robert Johnson and Mac.
Sure.
If when you make the Tavis Smiley T-shirt that says everybody wants to be a talk show host, but nobody wants to be a listener, I would like 5% of that.
Happy to share it, Jeff. Happy to share it. It came courtesy of a dialogue with you, so you're entitled to at least 5% of the royalties on that. So consider it done. To Robert Mac McCormick again, I want to get to the collection here and what's in it. But was he just a music enthusiast, or was he an artist himself, a frustrated artist?
Well, I think he was a frustrated writer.
Right.
And I guess, we'll have to decide whether writers truly artists. He wasn't a musician,
right,
as far as I can tell. He was a really gifted writer, though. I was surprised when you read this book that the Smithsonian ended up actually publishing, and John Troutman, one of the curators, really had to work hard to get this book, to figure out how to publish it, really, because there were a lot of different versions, and they have this beautiful forward and this beautiful afterward. But basically, you read this biography of a Phantom, which I think is now more about Mac McCormick than about Robert Johnson, but it's about his search for Robert Johnson. And the writing is eloquent, it's beautiful, passionate. He's a great writer. So there's no question about that. But, he couldn't deliver it. Like he had all this material and he just couldn't deliver it. I also think that curators are artists, and this guy knew who to capture, how to capture them. The notes are impeccable. If you go to the Smithsonian and you go to the museum and look at the notes, and if you can request to look in the archive, it's unbelievable, these typewritten notes. They're beautiful, they're detailed, they're focused. He's giving people advice on how to get people comfortable so they can do field recordings. I mean, some of these people were seasoned performers, and then a guy like James Tisdom, the guy's just on the street corner. He wasn't famous then. He's not famous now.
Yeah.
So, Mac had to get the best out of these people and have them, perform, and he was a master at that.
Yeah. You just tapped into something that I am utterly fascinated by, and maybe it's just me, but since I get the microphone right now, I can ask it. Maybe somebody in the audience heard the same thing I heard come out of your mouth, and I want to just kind of interrogate that right quick before we close by talking about, again, what's actually in this collection beyond some of the stuff we've already played. But I was thinking as you were talking, Jeff, about a number of, high-profile writers and artists whose names we know, if I were to mention them, and I don't want to cast aspersion on anybody, so I won't mention the names. I don't need to make the point or ask a question I want to probe or get you to probe. And that is what you think about, what you've learned, what your takeaways are from all the years of your work about artists who can't push it out. They're creative, they're gifted, and even if they get that first book out, and there's some very famous writers, as you know, who got the first one out but couldn't get the second one out, or artists who got that one album out but couldn't do it again. I don't know what's there. I'm just curious, since you mentioned it, whether or not there are any thoughts you have of what you've learned over the years about those who can push it out repeatedly and those who get stuck, as it were.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because I have a very strong feeling about this, and I talk a lot about writing to people, and I'll tell you, this is I'll give you my short answer and my slightly longer answer. My short answer is, to writers, is lower your standards.
Wow.
And I know that sounds insane and bizarre, but here's what it means. When you sit at a computer or a typewriter or a notebook and you spend hours and hours unable to put a word on the page, that thing they call writer's block, right? When you do that, you're just putting off the inevitable. And the fact is, not every sentence, not every word that comes out of your mouth and gets onto a page is going to be impeccable and perfect. And so when I say lower your standards, I mean sit there and type. Sit there and write. Put this stuff down. I do it all the time. And what I end up with sometimes is a terrible, terrible section for a story or a sentence that doesn't work or whatever. But sometimes I get somewhere else. And I always get somewhere. And so to psychologically hamstring yourself by, getting stuck in that endless circle of writer's block, I think that's a problem. And, maybe it's because I know that I'm not the most gifted writer in the world. And, if you're a great, great writer and you've written an amazing book and suddenly they're telling you, hey, you've got to do another book, and you feel like you have to meet that standard, maybe that's a different thing that goes on in your head.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just about doing it. It's like that with everything, isn't it? It's like the only way to overcome not getting something done is to do it.
That's right. Nope, that's great advice. Great advice. I'm glad I asked that question. Didn't know where it was going, but I figured something might be there worth interrogating or excavating, and so I'm glad I asked. In the few minutes I have left here, tell me what actually is in this collection. What did Robert Mac McCormick's family donate to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History?
Well, so we are only getting a small piece of it right now. You can actually go on to the Smithsonian's website and look in their archives, and they've done an amazing job of digitizing a list of what's available there. But what they've started with is this incredible box set, which I can't recommend it enough, and it's called "Playing for the Man at the Door," and it's field recordings from the Mac McCormick collection. And these recordings range from completely famous people in the blues world, like Lightnin' Hopkins or Mance Lipscomb, to total unknowns who you've never heard before, like Billy Beiser on harmonica, or like George Bongo Joe Coleman. These are great samples from this, this lifelong adventure that Matt McCormick had with this tape recorder. And, they're also like, he doesn't just get the audio. He takes a picture of of Lightnin' Hopkins at the Sputnik Bar in Houston in 1961. He's sitting there with the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. There's a lady with her hands on his shoulders. He's got a couple bottles in front of him. You can almost feel what it's like to be in these places. And to me, it's an incredible window. I mean, look, I'm a guy who was born in 1970 and grew up in New England, right? And it probably won't be a shock to you that I'm a white man. And I feel like I'm understanding and getting a window into a world that I just, is totally foreign to me. And it's a great gift to me.
Yep. My final question, my exit question in the 45 seconds I have left here. What has exposure to this collection done or said to you all over again about the value of the blues?
Well, I'm not a music critic, I'll tell you. I'm a reporter. Mm-hmm. But I will say that there's something really, really moving about hearing songs by people who are only motivated by the song. These people weren't motivated by – there was no record guy coming in the door to sign them up, right? They were working people in many cases, and they were playing for their friends, their neighbors, and themselves. So these songs are as close as you can get to the heart as anything, right?
We call that love around here, Jeff. We call that love. Doing it for the love. His name is Jeff Edgers, reporter with the Washington Post. Did a pretty amazing story about this Robert Mac McCormick collection. Mac McCormick loved the blues so much, spent his whole life literally just collecting tapes and vinyl and writings and recording other artists. It's an amazing collection now, owned by the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, donated there by his family. Jeff, thanks for the piece. Thanks for the conversation, all the insights. I loved it. We'll do it again, hopefully somewhere down the road. Take care, my friend.
Hey, big admirer. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Likewise. Thanks for your time. More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hundreds of demonstrators marched through the streets of Decatur last night to protest delays by the Alabama law enforcement agency in releasing information about its investigation into the fatal shooting of Stephen Perkins. Led by the Morgan County NAACP, members of the group demanded police body cam video of the officer-involved shooting that took place on September 29th to be released to the public. Perkins was killed following an argument with a tow truck driver who was attempting to repossess his car. More American workers are back in the office. U.S. work-from-home rates have dropped to the lowest since the pandemic. According to the latest census data, fewer than 26% of households still have someone working remotely at least one day a week, a sharp decrease from the early 2021 peak of 37%. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
The Sigler continues in Glendora, 210 West at Sunflower Avenue. That's where a big wig wreck and a spilled load of paint is across your two right lanes. Traffic is stopped from Lone Hill, also affecting the 57 north with heavy traffic onto the 210. In Doherty, 210 westbound at Buena Vista Street, a wreck on the right shoulder. And an accident working on the 10 west to the 710 south connector.
At your Amazon Fresh store, you can rely on roasted chicken for $4.97, 2-pound bunches of bananas for 99 cents, French bread for 89 cents, and more. Visit your local Amazon Fresh store for low prices from A to Z and head to amazon.com/savewithfresh to see this week's deals.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Las Vegas Aces won their second straight WNBA championship. They beat the New York Liberty last night to win the finals in 4 games. The Aces are the first back-to-back champs in the WNBA since Lisa Leslie and the LA Sparks did it in 2001 and 2002. Rams starting cornerback Darian Kendrick was charged with 2 misdemeanors for carrying a concealed weapon and a loaded firearm. Police found a gun in Kendrick's car early Monday morning after he was pulled over for a traffic violation in Hollywood. Rams coach Sean McVay said Kendrick will not practice or play until his legal situation is resolved. Kendrick is due back in court on December 5th. James Harden was a no-show at practice yesterday in Philadelphia. He's doing whatever he can to get the Sixers to trade him to the Clippers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Klein Tools are new at Lowe's, pros. Lowe's knows you want top brands and quality products, and Klein Tools delivers. Right now, get the Klein 3-piece Modbox mobile workstation for $319.94 and the Klein 5-piece cushion grip screwdriver set for just $34.97, both exclusively at Lowe's. Shop the largest selection of Klein tools, the highest quality tool brand at Lowe's. Because Lowe's knows tools, Lowe's knows pros.
To some, this might sound like a typical family dog. But at Dog Chow, we know that for a veteran suffering from PTSD, this could be the sound of life-saving therapy.
Thanks, Betty.
That's why we've made it our mission to connect every military hero in need with a canine hero of their own. To learn about the simple ways you can help Dog Chow in our mission, visit dogchow.com/veterans.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
She left that mule a ride. The train pulled out and I swung on behind. I'm crazy about that hard-headed woman of mine.
The music of Taj Mahal. And speaking of the blues, recently I was delighted to accept an invitation from the Blues Foundation to host the upcoming 45th Blues Music Awards in Memphis, where else, preceded by the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The president and CEO of the Blues Foundation, Kimberly Horton, joins us now. to give her take on this remarkable collection we were just discussing from Robert Mack McCormick, now donated to the Smithsonian. Get her thoughts on that, specifically as it relates to preserving this unique American art form. And talk about the more important work of the Blues Foundation. Kimberly Horton, good to have you on this program. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you so much. I'm so honored and happy to be here.
I'm delighted to have you on for these few minutes that we have to talk about a few issues. Let me start with again, the conversation we just had with Jeff of the Washington Post, talking about this Robert Mack McCormick, who spent his whole life as a blues enthusiast. He's collecting all kinds of stuff, and now his family has donated this pretty amazing, this grand collection to the Smithsonian. That's a big deal. I want to start by asking your take on what it means in a moment like this to be doing the work of preserving, again, this uniquely American art form against invisibility, as it were.
Well, I hate that all of this work was hidden for so long, for one.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say that I'm eager now myself to partake in going to visit, to see some of the works myself. But I just it's so many works that have been, put aside by our great artists from back in the day. So my main take on it is I just hate that it was hidden for so very long. And I'm glad now that it's out on display, maybe some answers to some things that we may have questions to or may have had questions to in the past, especially regarding Robert Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of those questions will be answered now to where we may know some of the real deal truth of it. But other than that, I'm happy to know that the family took it to the Smithsonian for everyone to partake in it.
Yep. I could ask this question of jazz. I could ask this question of the blues. In this conversation, of course, we're talking about the blues. But if I were to ask you, I mean, every year, as you know, first of the year, we have the president of the country give what's called the State of the Union address. And of course, they lie every year and tell us that the state of our union is strong, and we all know it's not. It's a great country, but we got so much more work to do, and our strength is overrated. We're coming apart at the seams, as it were. That's another conversation for another time. I'm not trying to pull you in that direction. I raise that only because if I were to ask you to give me a short speech on the state of the blues in 2023, what would you say?
I would say it's kind of in an endangered state just a little bit, just because we are, the demographic of the blues is an older demographic.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'm looking forward to doing is bringing the younger people in and introducing them to what it is, why it is, and where it came from, and help them to understand that the things that they're listening to now actually came from the blues. So if we don't get the younger generations involved, I really don't know where it would be. I have hopes because it's my passion, it's my love.
Mm-hmm.
But I have hopes for it to continue to stay alive. But we do have to get the younger generation involved. I mean, I say all the time when I'm in meetings and so forth, the demographic is 60 to death, and we have to change that to get younger folks involved and just bring them aboard and make it be a more attractive. Young people think the blues is sad and it's down, and that's not it at all. So just bringing the young people aboard, that would help us keep it alive.
Let's just keep it real. It's not just that the audience is older; it's also whiter, and in that regard, the same can be said of jazz. Wynton Marsalis is a dear friend of mine, and Skane and I have these conversations all the time. He's always scratching his head, and I have to help him sometime in our private conversations to not take this stuff so personally. But he's like you. It's his passion, it's his love, and nobody. I mean, he's the greatest, living jazz artist, no question about it. And certainly given what he's done for the genre with jazz at Lincoln Center, and he's always traveling the world. He's our nation's best ambassador for jazz, to my mind, around the globe. And yet he has these moments where he wonders what he's really accomplished. Because it doesn't seem to be catching hold with our people, even though we created this art form called jazz. It's not respected, regarded, or embraced as he would hope by our own community. The same could be said again of the blues. It's not just older; it's whiter. And I ain't mad at nobody who loves it. We created it, and if you love it, that's a beautiful thing. But it's sort of indictment on black people ourselves. That we're allowing others to take these two art forms and do with it as they wish, as they will. So you talked about the older part. How concerned are you about the whiter part?
Well, it goes to one of the things that I have as a large goal, top priority, which is the education piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's ours. We started it, but our folks have not been educated. We have to educate our young Black African American youth so they'll know and be able to embrace it and appreciate it. And that has fallen by the wayside at some point. So we have got to bring it back to fruition, reality, that this is our music, we created it, and we have to educate our youth on it. And if we don't do that, it's going to continue to be that way. Yeah. We have blues camps, and there aren't, many Black kids involved because they don't know they exist. Well, I plan to change some of those things because we have to get the younger generation of African Americans involved, and that goes back to education. We need to teach them what it is and why it is and why it's important for it to be preserved up under where it needs to be.
Yep. We were talking again with our friend at the Washington Post, Jeff, earlier in this hour. And in that conversation, the name Prince happened to come up, and we kind of pivoted for a second, had a conversation about Prince. And I started this conversation with you, of course, playing an artist you know quite well, Taj Mahal. And I raised both of those names because here are examples of two guys who can play anything.
Right.
Prince could play anything. And I used to tease him all the time that, certainly back in the day, you buy a Prince album, and you'd see on the back of it all songs written by Prince. All songs produced by Prince. Engineering by Prince. All lead vocals sung by Prince. Background vocals sung by Prince. All instruments played by Prince. I mean, good Lord. He would just do everything on the album. And the same can be said of Taj. I mean, Taj, as you know, plays everything. I don't know an instrument that Taj Mahal cannot play. I raise that only because I'm wondering whether part of the disconnect, and this is just me, just a wild thought, I'm wondering whether or not part of the disconnect that we have in the Black community to jazz and blues is that to do that, you got to be a player. I'm not hating on any, I ain't hating on nobody, but it's not about a machine. It's not just about your voice. It's not about auto-tune. You have to be a player, and I could connect that to taking music classes out of schools. I mean, I could do this all day long, but my question is whether or not you think that part of what we're up against with the audience being older and wider and not being embraced by our own community has to do with the fact that to be in blues, to be in jazz, you got to be a player.
Well, partially. I wouldn't say all, but partially. Because, I would just say partially because, in the record industry, music industry is rare and few and far in between, unlike Prince, to have all of your stuff owned by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be a player, it plays a big part, but you also got to know the business side of it, and you also got to know what needs to happen and what doesn't need to happen so that you can do your stuff correctly to benefit yourself as well as the audience.
Yep.
So, it's so much that can go. We can talk about that forever, but it's so much stuff that goes into it that makes it be a successful ring.
No, I don't doubt that. I was just talking specifically about if you're going to be a blues artist, you got to be able to play something. Unless you're a vocalist, and nothing wrong with that. To be in jazz, you got to play something in the band. So I just don't know whether or not that is part of the issue. But I'll leave that alone for now. When we come forward, I want to pick up on this point you raised a moment ago. As the president and CEO of the Blues Foundation, that this is your passion, it is your love. It has been for many, many years. I'm curious always about the backstory of our guest. How did it become your passion and your love? We'll talk about that with Kimberly Horton when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Oh, loving from my baby's eyes. See that loving in my baby's eyes. Loving from my baby's eyes. Look up, baby, now you know damn well.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, And I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hey, did you know Vistaprint prints everything a small business needs? Like if a barbershop needs signage, we print outdoor signs, posters, and banners. Or if a ballet school needs merch,
1, 2,
we print tote bags, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. Or if a coffee shop needs a total refresh,
latte for Mike?
Vistaprint designs logos and prints it on menus, mugs, paper bags, anything. Because with Vistaprint, the printabilities are endless. Print it all with 25% off for new customers with code NEW25 at Vistaprint.com.
Discover, this is Danny.
Hi, it's Jen Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great. But with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Are you hungry? 'Cause everyone left after the asparagus sorbet.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Our guest is Kimberly Horton. She is the new president and CEO of the Blues Foundation. And we're talking in this hour, in case you've just tuned in, about a major collection by Robert Mack McCormick that was just donated to the Smithsonian. And it's a big deal, and everybody's talking about it, and we're talking about it because the collection was sort of hidden for so long, but now discovered, donated by his family to the Smithsonian, and it just puts in front of us another opportunity to talk about the value, the importance of the blues historically in this country, another creation, of course, of our people, and what we do about preserving this unique American art form. Again, delighted to be in conversation now with Kimberly Horton, the president and CEO of the Blues Foundation. You mentioned earlier, Kimberly, I'm watching my timer, you mentioned earlier that this has been your passion, your love for a long time. You've done a number of things in your career, but at this moment, as president and CEO of the Blues Foundation, that passion, that love is going to come in handy to help you navigate what you have to deal with every day. Tell me, though, quickly about your passion and your love for blues.
Passion and blues for the blues started when I was 6. My mom took me to the Capitol downtown Jackson, Mississippi, to see B.B. King, and that opened the door, and it's been with me ever since. So it's been with me literally ever since.
When you were a kid at 6, and I'm just curious, I saw B.B. many times. When you were a kid, I didn't see him at 6 though. When you were a kid at 6 and you saw B.B. King, like what were you? I can see your eyes wide open in downtown Jackson, but tell me what you recall about what you were seeing and hearing that day.
I mean, it's just the language of the guitar, the language of his body languages as he's singing, and just all of it. It was encapsulating for me. And then I'm thinking, this is the same music. I hear Big Mama playing on clean it up on Saturday morning. I like this. This is moving. You can feel it. So it's been with me ever since the beginning. My mom and I actually got to meet him. He signed a picture for me at 6. So that has stuck with me all these years. So that's where it started. That's the root of it.
I've rarely met anybody more approachable than B.B. King. He was approachable. He was likable. He was kind. Never saw him be anything other than that to his fan base. But here's a guy. Here's a guy who really got it. He really got that he was there because others supported his work and his music. And again, I've just rarely seen anybody who has just been so engaging when it comes to his fan base. I'm not surprised to hear he gave you an autograph at 6, and that, again, it speaks to the kind of person that B.B. King was. Our remaining moments with Kimberly Horton when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From the Mert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take. And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan. Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
She's so smooth. So I'm interrupting my own shower to remind you to treat your skin like the queen she is with Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash, packed with Olay's highest level of vitamin B3 complex. It's so moisturizing that it will give you visibly smoother, head-turning skin in just 14 days. People wondering, how'd she get so smooth? Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. Also, try Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Kimberly, I got just a few minutes left here. Tell me about the work of the Blues Foundation and specifically your two signature events.
Well, the work of the Blues Foundation, we are here to, just what you've been saying, preserve the history and the heritage of the unique American art form. So we have two big events, the International Blues Challenge that takes place every January, and then the Blues Music Awards, which takes place every May, which next year will be our 45th year. And all of that information can be found at blues.org. We're here to teach, educate, and provide services to different types of services to blues musicians all over the world. We're not just known here in the States; we're internationally known. We have the Hall of Fame as well.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the challenge, the Blues Challenge.
The International Blues Challenge is where we have artists. Aspiring artists come from all over the world. I mean, we've had up to 250 countries here before in Memphis competing to become crowned the International Blues Challenge winner for that particular year. It opens doors for opens doors that they wouldn't normally have to get to certain venues, to get on certain festivals, to be in front of. It's like the big network event for everybody to have a chance to show off their talents and become the next big name of the blues, and we want to be the stepping stone to help them get that recognition. We have a networking event that they get to sit down and talk to record labels and artist management and booking agencies that they would never be able to sit in front of to display their talent.
Yep. And
it's an exciting time.
No, speaking of exciting, I'm about to say I can only imagine how empowering, how joyful an experience that must be when you see hundreds of folks from around the world descend on Memphis to show their skills. That's got to be uplifting.
It is. I mean, we take over Beale Street for the week, and it's exciting every night. To see them go from the quarterfinals to the semifinals, end up at the Orpheum Theater on Saturday for the finals. It's like it's I can't explain it. You'd have to be here, but it's a wonderful experience for the musicians and for the Blues Foundation. We have thousands of people here that come to see who the next big thing is for the blues.
No, that's a good time to make a trip to Memphis. If you ever want to go to Memphis and have not been, that might be a good time to go. So tell me again, when is that particular challenge?
It's going to be January 16th through the 20th of next year.
There you go, 16th through 20th.
of January.
Okay. Looking for a reason to go to Memphis? There's a good reason to head to Beale Street and to see these artists from all around, these aspiring artists from all around the world. Competing to be the next big thing in the world of blues. Our guest has been Kimberly Horton. She is the president and CEO of the Blues Foundation. Kimberly, thank you for your work and witness just starting, of course, in this particular role. I will see you in May for the Blues Awards. Thank you for the invitation, the 45th Blues Awards. I'll see you then. Until then, take care of yourself.
Thank you. See you soon.
Good to have you on this program. In our next hour, which you do not want to miss, a lot of black folk are giving up on America, and they're just moving and leaving and living in other parts of the world, essentially saying America does not deserve me. We're going to talk to three folk who have made that decision to just leave America. One is in Lisbon, one is in Mexico City, and one is in Singapore. Y'all pray for me that all these phone lines work in the next hour. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hundreds of demonstrators